On a small farm, in dense thickets of burdock, the mother duck found a cozy place to build her nest. She waited for the chicks to hatch. One sunny morning, the eggshells crackled and tiny fluffy ducklings were born. There was only one egg left, the largest one that did not want to crack. The duck began to worry that something was wrong with him. She sat down on the egg again and decided to wait a little longer. The duck mom gave all the heat she could. She thought that this chick must be the most beautiful since she has been incubating him for so long. Soon a chick hatched from the last egg, but it did not look like the rest of the ducklings at all. It was much larger, and its feathers were gray. The duck mom was upset to see such an ugly son. But she hoped that someday he would become like his fellows. The rest of the ducklings laughed at him. They considered him disgusting and did not want to play with him. The next morning, the mother duck went with her children to the lake. To her surprise, the ugly duckling swam as well as others. The duck then brought her little ones to the poultry yard to introduce them to society. She told the ducklings about the rules of behavior with local inhabitants. The duck presented its brood to the noblest fat drake, but he attacked the ugly duckling, and she was forced to protect her failed chick. Fat Drake ordered to drive the freak out of the yard. Mother assured that he would grow up and become like other ducklings. Unable to withstand the bullying and humiliation, the ugly duckling left the poultry yard. In search of a safer place, he came across a beautiful lake, on which there was no one. And the duckling decided to stay here to live. Time has passed. Despite his loneliness, the ugly duckling was happy that no one offends him. And then one day, a beautiful white bird with a long neck flew to his lake. The ugly duckling did not know what kind of bird it was, but he looked at it with admiration. He loved her with all his heart. How a duckling would like to be like this lovely white bird. Winter came and it started snowing. The ugly duckling saw white snow for the first time. He was delighted with this sight. But due to the fact that the winter was very snowy, it was very difficult for the duckling to find food. He had to walk around the neighborhood in search of food. He was cold and tired. So the ugly duckling got to the farmer's house. When the peasant saw a thin and unhappy chick, he felt sorry for him. The farmer decided that he would keep the duckling with him until he was fattened and matured. Spring has come. The owner took good care of the chick, and he grew up a lot. The duckling already needed a lot of space, and the farmer decided to release him to the lake. Standing on the shore of the lake, the ugly duckling looked at his reflection in the water. And he could not believe his eyes. He could not recognize himself, and thought that there was someone else behind him. And then the duckling realized that the wonderful bird in the reflection is himself. To celebrate, he thrashed and swam all over the lake from edge to edge. And suddenly he saw the same beautiful white bird with a long neck, which he had seen once before. The ugly duckling decided to swim closer to her. But the beautiful bird was not frightened, but on the contrary she smiled and winked, and together they swam across the lake. The ugly duckling couldn't believe his happiness. Passing by, a fat drake on the shore of the lake said that he had never seen such a beautiful young swan in his life. What was his surprise when he found out that the ugly duckling that he once drove from the poultry yard was a beautiful swan. It turns out that the ugly duckling was a swan from the very beginning. An egg accidentally fell into a duck's nest. And when the beautiful young swan returned home, then everyone in the poultry yard became very ashamed that they had once offended him because of his appearance. A long time ago, poor man Ali Baba lived with his wife Zainab in a distant eastern country. He made his living by hard work. He chopped wood in the forest and sold it in the market. Once, while working, Ali Baba noticed that a whole detachment of horsemen was galloping towards him. Out of fear, he climbed a tree and hid in the foliage. The riders stopped under a tree and removed the sacks full of gold from the horses. There were exactly 40 of them, led by the one-eyed chieftain Hassan. Ali Baba immediately guessed that these were robbers who had returned with their prey.
Oh no!
While Ali Baba was trembling with horror, the chieftain approached a rock nearby and whispered an incantation. Suddenly an inconspicuous iron door overgrown with grass opened in the rock.
Cool!
The robbers entered the cave, hid all the stolen gold there, took the empty bags and rode back into the forest. After making sure that there were no robbers, Ali Baba descended from the tree.
Cool!
He went to the secret door and whispered the spell he had heard from the chieftain. The door flew open.
Okay.
Ali Baba saw a huge cave full of gold, silver, expensive fabrics and diamonds. Ali Baba looked around, quickly grabbed 2 bags of gold, loaded them onto the donkey and rushed home. Returning to his wife, Ali Baba showed her the sacks of gold. Delighted with wealth, they began to count coins. But the couple did not succeed because there were too many coins. The money should have been measured with a special cup, but poor Ali Baba did not have it. Then Zainab decided to take the cup from Ali Baba's rich brother Qasim. Qasim himself was burning with curiosity. He could not understand why the beggar Ali Baba needed a measuring cup for gold. Therefore, he smeared the bottom of the bowl with honey to find out exactly what the spouses would measure. When Ali Baba returned the bowl, Qasim noticed that gold coins had stuck to the honey at the bottom. He realized that Ali Baba was hiding wealth from him. Then Qasim came to his brother and threatened to inform the king about him if Ali Baba did not tell the whole truth. The frightened Ali Baba told Qasim about the robbers, the cave and even about the spell that opens the secret door. In the morning Qasim took 10 donkeys and headed to the cave. After casting a spell, he went inside. The untold wealth of the cash turned Qasim's head. He danced for a long time among gold and precious stones, stuffing his bags with coins. Suddenly the sound of hooves was heard outside the door. The robbers have returned. Qasim tried to hide behind sacks of gold, but the robbers found, tied up and kidnapped him. The one-eyed chieftain immediately realized that Qasim was not the only one who knew about the cash in the cave. Then the robber went to the city and learned that a certain Ali Baba had previously been a poor man and now suddenly became rich.
Cool!
Adam followed Ali Baba home and marked his door with a black cross to come at night and take revenge. By evening, Ali Baba's wife went out into the garden to water the donkeys. She saw the cross and immediately realized that this sign was not good. Then she painted the same crosses on all the neighboring houses. At night, the robbers returned and saw that all the doors were marked with a black cross.
No!
They could not find Ali Baba's house. Their plan failed. The next day, the chieftain hung 40 large jugs on the donkeys, hid the robbers in them, and set off for the city.
Nice.
At the bazaar, he pretended to sell butter, and he himself again tracked down Ali Baba.
Yeah!
When it got dark, the chieftain knocked on the house of Ali Baba. The robber asked to spend the night, and in return offered to present 40 large jugs of oil. And Ali Baba agreed. He cordially received the chieftain, and even allowed to drive the donkeys into the yard. While preparing dinner for a guest, Ali Baba's wife noticed that they had just run out of butter. Then she went out into the courtyard to pick up the oil that their guest had brought. But suddenly in the jugs there was a rustle and whisper of robbers. Then Zainab ran to the kitchen, grabbed a cup of boiling water and poured it on one of the robbers. He got scared, screamed, jumped out of the jug and ran towards the mountains. The whole detachment rushed after him in fright. Realizing that he too would soon be uncovered, the chieftain ran out of the house and disappeared without a trace. And Ali Baba and his wife lived happily ever after. And the robbers never returned.